Have you ever wondered why you bought the item that you bought? Have you ever wondered why your friends or your family members are spending money on the things that they are spending their money on? Or are you wondering, why did I spend this money on this particular product? You might be wondering about what influences your own decisions on the things that you want to buy, the way that you are going to use those things, and the way that you are going to dispose of those things. And you might also be wondering what influences your friends and families to make the purchases that they have made, right? So if that is the case, then this video is for you. So in this video, we are going to talk about consumer behavior. Now, whenever we talk about marketing, I have explained numerous times that marketing is all about getting value to the consumers. So how do you get value to the customers? You create value, you communicate about that value to the consumers, you figure out a way to get the value to the consumer, and then you exchange the value with the consumer with something of value in return, so that you also get something of the value that you are delivering to your consumers. So marketing is all about value. And just as all the marketers and all the companies are trying to get value to the consumers, what are the consumers doing? What are you and I doing at the meantime? We as consumers are also seeking value. All our decision-making process, all the things that we go through is designed in such a way that whenever we are purchasing something or using something, we are trying to extract the maximum possible value from the purchase that we have made. If I bought a car, then you better be sure that I did my research to try to figure out how I would get the best value, which is basically maximizing the maximum benefit that I'm going to get while giving out as little as possible, right? So whenever I make any decisions in terms of any purchase that I'm going to make, my decision making process and the behavior that I'm going to engage in is geared towards getting the maximum value. So as marketers strive to provide value to the consumers are also trying to get as much value as possible from the purchases that they are making. And consumer behavior is everything that the consumer does in their process of trying to get this maximum value. One of the really big component of consumer behavior, or how we behave as we seek value, is when we make the purchase. So the biggest thing that happens, the biggest behavior that a consumer displays is when they purchase a particular product, right? So what are the things that goes on before a consumer actually purchases a particular product? Now that is a topic of another video, and we have talked about the decision making process that leads a consumer to make a particular purchase that they have actually made. So as the consumer is going through the process to extract maximum value from their purchase, we know that at the end of the process, the consumer has purchased a particular product. Now, consumer behavior goes beyond just the purchase. It also goes towards studying how a consumer actually utilizes the product and disposes of the product after its utility is over. But we are going to focus mainly in this video talking about the purchase process, everything that leads up to the purchase process and the value that the consumer is going to get out of that particular product, right? So whenever we talk about how the consumer got into this situation where they are purchasing a product, we talk about the consumer decision making process, right? So there is a separate video talking about the consumer decision making process. Please take a look at that video as well. But just to recap and summarize, a consumer decision making process is the steps that a consumer goes through as they make a decision to buy a particular product. So the first step of the consumer decision making process is problem recognition, when you recognize that you have a particular problem that you need to solve. And then everything subsequently that you do is to figure out the way how you are going to solve the problem while extracting the maximum value possible, which is get the problem solved with as little resources being given away as possible. So once you recognize the problem, the next step is information search, where you search for information on what are going to solve your problems, what are the different options that are available, what are the costs and benefits associated with all of those different options that will help you solve your problem. So information search is searching for information to figure out how you're going to solve your problem. Evaluation of alternatives is the third step, where you evaluate between a final set of alternatives that you figured out are going to solve your problem. Once you've evaluated which of the consideration set products are going to solve your problem, the next step is to purchase the product that you think is going to provide you with the maximum value. And once you purchase the product, the next step is to evaluate whether or not you actually got the value that you think you were going to get. If you did not get the value that you were expecting to get, then in that case you will be dissatisfied and unhappy. And next time when you make the purchase, you may not purchase that particular product. But if you are happy, in that case you will be satisfied with the purchase that you have made, and then you will make the same purchase again the next time you are going to make a decision, right? So we talked about this in detail in the consumer decision making video. Please take a look at that. Now in this video, what we are going to talk about is we are going to analyze all the things that impact consumer behavior in terms of their decision making process. So the consumer behavior, which is the process that a consumer goes through as it tries to find maximum value, is influenced by a lot of different factors. First of all, because the consumer is going towards the path of figuring out what is the product that will give them the maximum value, we need to first understand what is the concept of value for that particular customer. And as we said in another video, there are different types of values: hedonic value, utilitarian value, right? So a product is valued differently by different consumers. So our job is to figure out what are the things that go into how a consumer values a particular product. So how do I value a car versus how do you value a car? How do I value my time compared to how do you value your time? How do I value this shirt compared to how do you value the shirt that you are going to wear? Is going to be very, very different. But that difference can be explained in part by a lot of things that are going around us and are happening inside us. So some of the things that might have an impact on how I value certain things might be my internal factors, such as my internal psychological factors, my motivations, my lifestyle, my personality, my perception, my attitude. All of those will determine what I value and how much I value a particular product or a brand. Similarly, there might be some external factors as well, like my cultural background will have an impact on what I value and how much I value it. Similarly, other external factors like the society that I belong to, the friend circle that I belong to, is also going to have an impact. The group that I belong to is also going to have an impact on what I value and how I value it. Other factors that might also have an impact is how much money do I have right now? If I'm a millionaire right now, or if I am a poor person right now. In that case, how I value what I value is going to be completely different. So there are situational factors as well, which will have an impact on how I value things. So if I'm with my friends, while we go outside shopping versus if I'm going alone, is going to create different scenarios of how I value and what I value. Whether I have a lot of money in my pocket at that particular moment in time will also determine what I value and how much I value. Is the store environment really, really wonderful? The music is playing, it's really, really brightly lit, right? All of those things might also have an impact on what I value and how much I value it at that particular moment, right? So there are a lot of things that influences my understanding of value. So in this video, we will briefly talk about all the different factors. We're not going to go into a lot of detail into those because those are different chapters and very comprehensive and complex topics within themselves. So let's briefly talk about some of the internal factors. So whenever we're talking about internal factors, the factors that are inside my head, right? My psychological influences that might influence what I value and how I value it. One really, really big important factor when we're talking about internal influences is my perception, right? My perception of a particular brand is going to impact how much I value their product. So my perception of Apple is that it is a company that wants to get as much money as possible from its customer, because they keep changing their products regularly even when their product is not obsolete. I've heard news about them slowing down their phones so that consumers will have to buy new products. Every time they bring out a new model, they will make slight modifications so that my old charger may not work, or I cannot use their old headphones, so I'll continuously have to buy their product on and on, right? So my perception, which is my internal factor based upon my experience, will have an impact on what I value and how much I value it. So based upon my explanation right now, you can understand that my perception about Apple is not so good, but my perception about Samsung or other brands might be better than that of Apple, right? Similarly, your perception might be different about different brands, and your perception about a particular product is going to have an impact, or your perception about a particular brand is going to have an impact on how you value that particular product. Another internal factor that also has an impact is your attitude, right? So your attitude towards a particular brand. So my attitude, which has a balance. Now, a perception necessarily may not have a balance. It may not be positive or negative, but my attitude towards Apple is a positive or negative factor. It's how I feel about Apple, right? My feeling about Apple is negative. So my attitude towards Apple is negative. My attitude towards Samsung might be positive. In that case, the products that they come out with will be valued differently by me because my attitude is different. Another internal factor that might have an impact is motivations. Different people do different things because they have different motivations. If I go to Starbucks, I might be really, really hungry, and then there is a Starbucks right in front of me. The reason I go to Starbucks is for my physiological need, which is basically I want to quell my hunger. Versus somebody else might go to Starbucks because it makes them feel better, right? Or it makes them feel accepted by their friend who also always go to Starbucks. So when you are going with the group or you're alone, you feel as part of the group because you go to Starbucks and your friends also go to Starbucks. So your motivation of going to Starbucks and my motivation of going to Starbucks might be very, very different. And you can talk about this motivation by looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs or hierarchy of motivations as well, to understand what are the motivations for the consumers to buy a particular product, which will give you an idea of how much they might value that particular product. So another factor that might have an impact on what I value and what you value might be the personality, right? So some people are introverted, some people are extroverted, some people are aggressive, some people are docile, some people are flashy or like to show off, versus some people don't want to show off at all, or they want to hide their wealth. Whatever may be the personality of a consumer is going to have an impact on what they value and how they value it. So that's another internal factor as well that we need to keep in mind when we are trying to understand consumer behavior and what are the things that are going to influence the type of purchases that they are going to make. Now, just as internal factors influence what we value and how we value it, there are external factors that also influence our perception of value, right? So let's talk about some of those external factors that influences what we value and how we value it. So one set of external influencers that are going to have an influence on you and your understanding of value is going to be your personal influences. Now, personal influences might come through the form of word of mouth, which is basically the information that you are getting from your friends or your families through your social media posts or from your direct communication with other people, right? So word of mouth about a particular product, the benefits associated with that particular product, the cost associated with that particular product, whether or not your friend and your family member was satisfied with the purchase that they made, or dissatisfied with the purchase that they made is going to have an impact on your understanding of value for that particular product. Similarly, there might be some celebrity endorsers that might endorse a particular brand, and their endorsement, because you like that particular celebrity, may have a positive impact on your understanding of value when it comes to that particular product. So there are also opinion leaders who have an influence on how consumers value different products. So opinion leaders are generally experts in their particular area, right? So there might be an opinion leader when it comes to technology product. Now those opinion leaders may exist online, right? Some of the opinion leaders that I follow when I'm trying to make a technology related product purchase are going to be opinion leaders in my case, because I will value their opinion on what they think about specific products and brands, and their opinion will have a very big influence on my understanding of value and subsequently my purchase decision, because my value is going to depend upon what their opinion is of that particular product. Similarly, there might be other influences which are group influences. So I have personal influences from individuals that are around me, but at the same time there might be group influences, right? For example, if I belong to a group of people, the way that the group itself values a particular product will have an impact on how much I value that particular product. So for example, if I belong to a group and all of my friends in that particular group only drive a Toyota or a Honda, then my perception of, or my understanding of value when it comes to my own purchase, like the brand of car that I'm going to buy, will be impacted by the social group that I belong to and the types of that car that they drive. Let's say all of my friends and family drive a sedan or they drive a crossover SUV, might hinder me or might make my understanding of value similar to theirs, and then I start thinking about minivan as a purchase that may not provide a lot of value to me, because my understanding of value is dependent upon the value perception that is created within that particular group. So for example, what I am going to wear is obviously going to be impacted by my social group that I belong to, right? So if all of my social groups are wearing casual, then most likely I'm not going to be wearing a formal suit. But if all of the people in my social group are wearing suits, then I most likely will not be wearing casuals. So my understanding of the value in these different scenarios is based upon the social factors that are going to have an influence on me. That would be an example of an external factor having an influence on me in terms of my understanding of what is of value and what is not of value. Similarly, another external influence might be in terms of my culture, my upbringing, right? The culture that I belong to will also have an impact on the type of things that I value and how much I value them. Now, we've heard this repeated often, that Eastern culture value spiritual things more than Western culture, which value materialistic things, right? Which will have an impact on the type of things that they value and how much they value it. So the type of products that I value as a Nepalese person belonging to a Nepalese culture might be different. Type of product that a person who was born and brought up in the United States will value. So the cultural background will have a very, very big impact on the type of things that we value and how much we value them as well. So that's also a big external factor that we need to consider. And thinking about the United States itself, we cannot think about culture as being similar across everyone, right? So we need to again segment the market to figure out which segment has which types of culture and how they value different things, right? And that would help us as marketers to provide value to the consumers.